You know, it seems like if there is one guarantee in life about video games nowadays, it's that at least someone is working on a Souls-like game, and I for one absolutely love that. Because Souls-like games are like my junk food at this point when it comes to video games. No matter how good or bad they are, I'll be there to play it. Because when someone gets these style of games right, it's really fun. But when they get it wrong, it's a terrible experience. Though luckily in the case of AI Limit, I was pleasantly surprised with how much fun I had with it. I really expected this to be a pretty bland experience, but I actually ended up doing some things really good I never thought it would. Though it also does some things bad as well. But before I get into that, as usual, there will be spoilers in this video, so take this as a warning. With that said, the first thing I want to begin with is the gameplay of AI Limit. Because at first glance, the gameplay would seem like your standard Souls-like game. You have your basic attacks and dodges you can do, there's equipable items to a bar to use, you can rest at these branches to level up your character, enhance your weapons, restore your healing, and respawn enemies and so on. But the gameplay has these little differences sprinkled in that kind of makes AI Limit feel more like an action game at times. For example, you're able to run around with two weapons that you can swap between at any time just like in a Souls game, but you also have a mechanic where in the middle of attacking an enemy, you can switch between the weapons to extend that attack string, making finding two weapons you enjoy using that much more interesting since you can try to find the best combo that fits your playstyle. You also have 4 dedicated abilities you can unlock as you progress through the game that you can switch between on the fly in combat to fit the situation you're in. Which these are made up of stuff like a parry where you can nail an enemy with a fatal strike for bonus damage, or my personal favorite, the thunder step, where dodging at the last second leaves behind an after image that damages enemies and may leave them open for a counterattack. Then to go along with the weapons and abilities, you're also able to equip spells to aid you in battle, which you can only equip one at a time, but I do want to say you can pause at any time and switch out your spells, even in the middle of combat. So that was nice to see, though I do wish I could have switched out my abilities for additional spells, so instead of having the 4 abilities having dedicated slots and your single spell being in a dedicated slot, you could have switched them around as you liked. I know from a story perspective, it's kind of designed to be this way with how it's set up on the main character's arm, but from a gameplay perspective, it would have been nice to have that option. But now what really makes all of these things really different from your typical Souls game is the sync rate system that ties it all together. So as you're making your way through AI Limit, there will be 2 bars down in the middle of your screen. Your health bar, and then above it you have another bar that has various colors along with a percentage number. That is your sync rate bar. How this works is that each color in the bar represents a level. The higher the level, the more damage your attacks will do and vice versa. The lower, the less damage you do. Then if the bar hits 0, you will be unable to move for a short period and leaves you wide open to enemy attacks, which everything I mentioned before affects the sync rate in various ways. Using spells, abilities, or even special weapon attacks will drain the sync rate, but landing things like basic attacks or fatal strikes will raise it. Also, taking damage will lower the sync rate as well, which because of this, I found myself getting into this little dance of bouncing between normal attacks and special moves to keep my sync rate up while battling enemies, and I really enjoyed this gameplay loop, because I didn't have to worry about managing things like stamina and magic. Not that I don't mind those kind of things, obviously, just look at the games I primarily play, but without them, I feel the sync rate mechanic really shines because of the freedom it gives you to perform basic actions like dodging and attacking without penalties. Not to mention it makes playing a magic build feel different from other games, since even if you don't invest into being able to do high damage with your weapons, the weapons you use still serve a purpose thanks to them being vital to restoring your sync rate so you can keep casting spells. Unfortunately, my biggest issue with this system is that I just wish I had a bigger variety of enemies to engage with. Outside of a handful of bosses, which were fantastic to fight and felt unique along with the corrupted bladers, the enemies can be pretty bland to fight. Like, their designs are great with some pretty big distinction of what faction they are from, but they just never really evolved throughout the game, and they even have the classic reusing boss enemies as normal enemies in later areas, which is something I will never like no matter the game. Though on the bright side, the game feels fantastic to play in terms of controls. This might be one of the smoothest controlling Souls-like I've played, and I never felt like controls were an issue. Plus, the hitboxes are fantastic and never felt like I got screwed when getting hit by an enemy. but I suppose I've rambled enough about the combat. There's another little feature I want to bring up now, which is the Nucleus system. Basically, when you defeat a powerful enemy or boss, you get a nucleus, and these nucleus can be used in a few different ways. The first way is they can be traded in along with crystals to get powerful weapons or spells based on what nucleus you use, which, by the way, crystals are what you earn from defeating enemies, and is also what is used to level up your stats. Anyways, this is basically your standard Souls-like system, but they also have a second function separate from that. You can actually equip these nucleus. Depending on which one you have equipped, the crystals you gain and lose from defeating enemies will be affected. So you have this risk-reward system where you can have a nucleus that raises how many crystals you earn from defeating enemies, but you will also lose more when dying. Not to mention, swapping nucleus has a crystal cost, so you can't just be switching them out all the time. Really cool system that I do feel gets left behind by the time you get to the last third of the game because of how good some of the nucleus are and how irrelevant they make other ones feel. The nucleus almost needed one more thing to make them a little more engaging, like raising various stats depending on what one you have equipped. Would have made the system even more interesting, kind of like what the seal system does. The seal system is probably the most interesting system when it comes to your equipment. Seals are the only thing you can't change when out exploring and must be done when resting at a branch. How these work is basically you equip a primary seal, which can not only give you a variety of effects, like cutting all your defensive stats in half so you can recover health when attacking or landing fatal strikes, but they also affect the size and stability of your sync rate bar, so you can use more abilities and take more attacks before it can fully drain, which these can also be upgraded to improve their effects. Plus, depending on the seal you have equipped, you can attach multiple smaller seals that provide effects like a greater resistance to fire or consuming no sync rate when using certain abilities. Fantastic system that I have zero complaints about, which is something I wish I could say about the level design. AI Limit has some of the best and worst level design I've seen in a game. I say this because it overly relies on a certain kind of gimmick that few games get right, and that's the gimmick of pressuring the player to move through a level while being harassed by an enemy or thing from afar. This style of level design could be memorable when done right and used in moderation, but AI Limit uses it so much and misses so many times when doing it. I mean, look at these. We got robots shooting lasers, snipers, spear throwing machines summoning electric fields, and so on. It's like they constantly have the need to have something in every area attack you from afar, and it's just so annoying to me. Definitely way later on when you're in a certain area, and maybe all of you will disagree with me on this, but this area is everything I hate about level design. You have to fight enemies in spots where you can fall to your death while also needing to avoid giant eyeballs of doom that will start casting a spell on you that's unavoidable. If you can't tell, I really dislike this area, though there is a spot they get this level design right, and that's the factory, my favorite area in the game. You have a giant robot whose lasers you need to avoid to progress through the factory as you try to destroy the pipe sending power to him. What I love about this is his lasers are slow and predictable. You can easily see what he's doing at all times. The enemies you fight in this area are well placed, and all of the stronger enemies that are harder to deal with are placed in spots where you can lure them into the robot's giant lasers. So you have this added ability to use the environment to your advantage. This is good level design. This is what I want when I'm thinking about this kind of pressure that moves you forward as a player. If they ever make a sequel to AI Limit, I hope they do something like this area again, though I do need to be fair about the areas I don't like, since a lot of these gimmicks that push you forward as a player, once you have dealt with them, they're gone for good in that area, so at the very least they aren't permanent. Though outside of these spots, the general level design is really good in this game. Secrets are well hidden, and exploring feels really rewarding, even though the level design is pretty linear. With that said, there's one thing that surprised me more than anything else when it comes to AI Limit, and that's the stories of the various characters of the game. While the main story of the game is okay overall, which is about a girl named Arusa who's known as a blader going on a journey to activate these branches while trying to find the truth of what happened to the world and the conflict between two warring factions. But this main plot isn't what really drew me into the story. It was all the various NPCs throughout the world that you meet and engage with, from how their stories overlap with each other and the secrets to these satisfying endings that are done really well. I really did enjoy these a lot, and I don't want to spoil much with them, but they are truly well done, unlike the performance of the game. Performance for me on my PS5 was a little hit or miss. Like, frame rate was fine, but I had a few crashes, and at times when I tried to teleport from one area to another, my game would glitch out, so I would have to restart it. Not sure what caused these bugs, but it's something I really hope gets worked out, because while they didn't ruin the game for me, they are annoying and do take away from an otherwise good experience. Because AI Limit may just be another Souls-like on the surface, but when you dig into it, it's a little bit more than just that. There's a lot of good ideas here that if we ever see a sequel, these ideas could be polished to make a truly amazing game. But for now, I have no problem recommending AI Limit, because this game is a great introduction for those who haven't played a Souls-like game before, and even if you have, I don't see why you wouldn't have a good time with this.